This episode contains discussions of death, which may be distressing for some listeners. Please proceed with caution if you find this topic sensitive or triggering. Your well-being is important, so feel free to skip this episode or take a break if needed.
I think what I love most about the job is that, you get the never-ending pursuit of sort of knowledge and getting better. Everyone's in a job to get better. You will never know everything there is to know about a job, because if you do, I don't think you're doing it right.
Hello and welcome back to Future You, the podcast brought to you by graduate careers experts Prospects. I'm your host, Emily Slade, and in this episode I speak to Jack, who works as a paramedic.
My name's Jack.Callingham. I work as a paramedic or a newly qualified paramedic in the East of England Ambulance Service.
Perfect. So what does a paramedic do?
So a paramedic, there's sort of that conventional, stereotypical thought of, you deal with blood, guts and gore on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I think that's quite far from the truth, to be honest.
Okay.
We go to those jobs every once a blue moon, especially I can only speak for central Norwich because it's not exactly a dangerous area. It's quite chill. You get lots of people who have lots of chronic illnesses who live quite far away in the sticks. So it's more of, that's what we deal with. Obviously, you do get the RTCs or the car crashes because obviously we've got those country roads. But what we do is obviously the emergency care part with like RTCs, cardiac arrests. We deal with births. Yeah, I know.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
It's so fun. Honestly, I love it. It's scary when you get in that situation.
Yeah.
But once they're born, it's great.
Oh my goodness. So would it be someone's on the way to the hospital? Or is it just like they want to have a home birth? Like what specifically, when are you called in?
So normally they'll be at home. I've heard of people like driving to hospital from other colleagues and they'll meet them about halfway and then deliver the baby even in the car or the ambulance.
Oh, wow.
But no, I've always dealt with them when they're at home. I have had one which was outside. They were walking to try and stimulate the process. And then, they was like, just hop in the ambulance, please.
Oh
we'll go deal with it there. But no, it's sort of that sort of stuff. We deal with lots of social care sort of stuff.
Okay.
So there's, you get some older people who don't have that sort of care package in place, like carers who deal with sort of meds management, personal care, just helping around the house, keeping the house clean so it sort of declutters everything so it reduces their risk of falling, that sort of stuff. So what we can do, I think what the best parts about this job is that we have quite an objective opinion when we walk in, because you have lots of family who will be like, oh, no, we think they're doing really, really well. And we can say, look, I think, I don't think so. I think they could probably benefit from having, probably a carer just perhaps once a day just to help them, if it's, to help them if they're by themselves, or to give their partner a bit of respite, because, it's all well and good being that sole carer for your partner or your mum or your dad, but, ultimately you need to look after yourself too, because it can very, very taxing.
So did you go to university?
Yes, I did go to university. So there is 2 routes you can do.
Okay.
So there's the external route or internal route. Ultimately, you now have to have a degree to be a paramedic.
Right.
So there's 2 routes you can do. You can do the internal or external. So the external is just going to university, you go for 3 years, and then you get a job after that. So with university. So I went to UEA, University of East Anglia. Absolutely loved my time there. So you can do that. Or the internal route is where you can join so there's different grades. So you have an ECA, which is emergency care assistant. You get an EMT, an emergency medical technician, and a paramedic. So you can join as an ECA or a tech. Some people like to join as an ECA because they can sort of ease their way into a job. Their scope of practice isn't that much. So they gain that experience and get comfortable in the job. And then the trust will then help with your progression. So you can go on to be a technician. So they'll put you into a course. They'll do all your training.
So to come in at that ECA level, you don't necessarily have to have any official qualifications. You can just turn up and be like, I would like to start my career.
Yeah, essentially.
And you can just enter at that level and then the company will help you go from there.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice.
I mean, I don't know what the the entry requirements are, but I don't think it's all that high. You don't have to be an academic to start out, because there's lots of like the old school paras. They started off as ECAs and they've worked their way up.
Yeah.
They've gone from that to tech to para, and then they're literally maxed out at para at the moment. Like they're top of their game and their sort of band, really. Then when you go to tech, there's an internal pathway to be a paramedic. So the trust will pay for you to go to university. So as opposed to studying for 3 years in the external route, you will study for 2 years, because the first year of university is more sort of just to get you sort of accustomed to what being a paramedic is, what the life is. They say once you pass your first year in university, you are an ECA level. When you pass your second year, you're a technician level. And then when you pass your third year, you are a paramedic.
So why did you not take the internal route? What made you end up at the UEA to study?
Originally, I wanted to do medicine. Got my A-level results. Wasn't the best, so I got rejected from all my offers. So I thought, you know what, I'll just take a year off. It's absolutely fine. I can always come back. And I can reattempt the UK CAT, which is the entry test for medicine. So I was like, I'll just try it again. Tried next time round, didn't go as well. So I thought, you know what, I really need a backup option. And during that year, I was thinking, you know, what do I actually want to do? I was like, for some reason, just being a chef popped in my mind. I don't know why. I've always loved food. I was like, oh, yeah, no, maybe I could do that. Someone who I worked with had like a connection to someone in France in a restaurant, and I was just emailing him back and forth. I was like, I'm really interested to come out. I haven't got any experience, but I'd love to come in, just work for you and just learn what I can. But then COVID hit. Yeah. So I couldn't travel out there. So I was like, oh, damn, I'm going to have to find a backup option here, a backup for my backup.
Yeah.
And I was like, crikey, it's really not going well for me. So then I thought, and I was such a nerd in sixth form, I loved biology and chemistry. So I thought I'd do biomedical sciences. So I applied for UCAS to do that at UEA. And then I got to talk to someone else at work, and they were like, oh, I'm doing like the paramedic science course, talking through it all. And I was like, this sounds absolutely amazing. Like, I am too ADHD to sit in a lab. Yeah. I need to be out and about. I need to be driving fast in vans and cars and all sorts of stuff. So I applied through clearing, and I managed to get in. Had my interview instead of in person over the phone. Very intimidating, very much so, because I remember the one thing they tell you for like medical school interviews, they say, you know, if you're panicking, just say, look, I need to take a minute. Can I just have a minute just to gather my thoughts, and I'll get back to you. So I said this during my interview, and I was like, oh, we'd rather you don't. I was like, oh, okay, no, we'll continue. And I was just panicking. I went down to my mum, and she was like, how'd it go? I was like, oh, just verbal diarrhea. It's just like coming out. I was like, I don't think I've done very well. But no, I got the place, and I'm in, and now in the job.
Yeah, incredible. So how did you get your job? Was it very easy, sort of graduate, walk straight into the working world?
The thing with applying to the ambulance service, it's not like the university have an agreement with the trust to send you through immediately. You have to apply as normal. So you go on a website called Track. They'll put up the vacancies for being a paramedic. The only sort of difference to like a standard sort of transition to the job is that we didn't have to do an interview, because over those 3 years of placement, they were like, that's interview enough. You know, if you've done something and we didn't like it, we won't offer you the job, because that's more intensive than any sort of like 10-minute interview.
So what do you love most about your job?
Oh, God, what do I love most about my job? I love absolutely everything about my job. I mean, I don't think there's a day where, I mean, if you ask the people I work with, I've got a chronic smile. I absolutely love it, like infectious enthusiasm. I mean, I think what I love most about the job is that, you know, it's a never-ending pursuit of sort of knowledge and getting better. Everyone's in the job to get better. You will never know everything there is to know about a job, because if you do, I don't think you're doing it right. But no, and it's just the progression you get from there. because there's so many routes you can take. You can go into critical care, like the air ambulance. You could go into urgent care, which like can be GP based. You can go into a place called HART, which is the hazardous area response team. But yeah, you get that. You get your lecturers. A lot of lecturers we had, they are still paramedics or were paramedics.
Oh, wow.
You can go into a managerial position, what we call LOMs, line operating managers. It's that and meeting people. Like you meet such like people who have such cool jobs. Like I remember a couple of weeks ago, I met a person who used to be like the head. I don't know the technical name, but like the head butler for like parts of the royal family and loads of like lords and ladies. And he didn't talk about it initially. It's when we got him onto the ambulance, his wife was like, ask about his job. And I was like, oh, don't you worry, I always ask about their job. And I was like, oh, I've heard you got an interesting job. And he started talking to me about it. I was like, this is so cool. I was like, I cannot wait to go home to my partner and tell them about this, because you just meet such cool people and you'd never expect it.
Yeah.
Hi there, I'm Jordan, host of the People First podcast, the Young Careers podcast. If you're listening to this, maybe you're early in your career journey, or you could be wanting to make a change. Maybe you're just overwhelmed with the demands in our work and life at present and are seeking some guidance. In this podcast, we'll digest the common themes young people are facing in the world of work.
You are not supposed to know everything. You are supposed to be asking loads of questions.
I had some form of neurodiversity. It's nice to be able to have that outside the box thinking, definitely.
See, mindfulness and wellbeing can seem like this big club, but actually it is the most simple thing in the world.
This is a space for open and honest conversation, helping you make positive change. Let's kick off.
So what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Walk, don't run.
Ooh.
When you're going into jobs, I always got told this by every mentor I had. If you run into a job, you'll start panicking and things will get away from you. If you walk, you'll be composed, you won't be panicked. And it's a philosophy I'll always carry and I'll impart to students I have. I think it's the best part of it, you know, because, I mean, the other week I remember I was doing a car shift and we had a cardiac arrest and I was going to be first on scene, and I remember I was driving there and I was like, oh, this is going to be difficult managing, because you've got to manage the family as well, because they're going through such an emotionally distressing time. And then you've also got to crack on with, you know, ventilating and performing CPR and, you know, trying to get history together and what's happened and led to this situation. But I just remember just literally thinking to myself, walk, don't run, walk, don't run, walk, don't run.
What hard skills do you use for your job?
So I think the hard skills we have is obviously cannulating. So just put a needle in someone's arm so we can give the drugs. We have...
What's that like?
So it's I think it's a motor skill at the end of the day. So it's a lot easier than people think.
Okay.
I mean, I had an ad hoc shift with a student. It was in their second year, so they taught to cannulate, and they were just like, oh, really nervous about cannulating. I was like, it's not a hard skill. Like, if I've done it, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Like, that's...
I guess, what are the things that can go wrong? Is it that the things that can go wrong aren't as bad as you think? Because I guess people have this... I would envision, like, stabbing into an artery and, causing someone to, like, explode.
You'd have to do quite a bad job to be able to get something like that. Normally, it's quite easy. It's like, you just feel for a vein and then you just pop it right in. Yeah. I mean, if that's if you should have that, I was about to say, because if we can't get that, we have something called like an IO. So, crikey, I can never pronounce it. But essentially, it's if you can't cannulate someone, you drill into the bone, and then that's another way we can administer drugs. So normally we do
into the bone.
Yeah, into the bone. Yeah. It's I know.
Oh my gosh.
It's quite an intense
thing
to do. I mean, it's sort of like, it's like last resort.
I should have considered how squeamish I was before I started asking you questions.
No, that's right. That's just me just going, honestly.
So in terms of soft skills, is that like, I imagine communication's a big one, both amongst the team and with the patients?
I think soft skills are hugely important, you know, because it's obviously working with your crewmates. because it's 12 hours you're in an ambulance with them, so you don't want it to go bad. So yeah, it's communicating with them. It's also being able to challenge people if they believe that what you're doing isn't right. From my experience, you can challenge anyone, and no one will get annoyed by it as long as you broach it in the right way.
Yeah.
But then, you get communication with patients. Sometimes, they require quite a gentle approach, because some scenarios you have like patients who are nearing the end of their life. And then there's the other challenging sides is like cardiac arrests or trauma, where you have family there and you've got to not only deal with the patient, which is really challenging in itself, but communicating with the family, just saying, look, we're going to start doing some treatment. Do you want to be in the room? This is going to be quite brutal. I completely respect if you want to stay in and watch, but if you want to step outside, obviously when we get someone in to give us a hand, we'll come out and we'll have a chat. We'll let you know what's going on. And it can be really, really difficult, and especially delivering bad news.
I was going to say, do you have special training on like how to deliver bad news, or is it just you just pick up how best to do it and everybody has their own way?
So at uni, we got taught how to do it, but you get taught an acronym on how to do it, and that's not really.
And then you can't really apply that to
exactly, because there's like core parts to it where it's just like you got to find the right environment. Do they feel comfortable? But I've seen loads of paramedics do it. I've done it myself. You find that way to talk to patients, and you ask, what's your understanding of the situation, and you can then know what they're saying. You can fill in the gaps for them, and then you can then go on to say, like, if they have passed away, you'll say, look, I'm really sorry, but your partner has died. We've tried, their heart stopped working for them. We've given them all the treatment we can, but unfortunately they've been unresponsive to that treatment. So we thought it'd be within their best interest that we hold resuscitation and we stop. And then you say, would you like to be in the room while we stop? Some people like to be in the room and hold hands while we stop. Or they say, no, I'd rather, you just clear up what you've got in there, then I can come back in. And then you'll say, how can we make this situation?
God, this is really upsetting.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's really sad.
It can be really challenging.
Gosh.
I mean, I think
how do you deal with that? Is there aid in your industry and sector, in your team, to sort of, do you have a debrief afterwards to check in?
Yeah,
do you get the day off the next day to go and deal, or do you not want to be alone after something like that?
So the trust are hugely supportive. There's loads of phone numbers we can call. Normally after big jobs, you'll all debrief. In fact, I've never not encountered a debrief after a big job. And you'll talk about how the job went, how you found it, and then people will then give you constructive criticism. They'll be like, look, we noticed this could have been better for next time.
Wow, that's
and then you'll also
heavy to have done that and then to get like feedback on it.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't imagine that, but it's just part of the job.
Yeah, I mean, it can be really challenging at some points. I mean, the one which I remember the most was the cardiac arrest. It was that cancer patient we went to. Unfortunately, we couldn't get them back, and they're fairly young, and it hit me quite hard. And stepped outside, tell the partner saying, look, this is what's happened. They've died. I'm really sorry. Would you like to be in the room with them? Would you not? And then he was just like, oh, I've got my 2 daughters upstairs. I don't know how I'm going to tell them. And then, that it gets, because they were young in themselves, and it's really challenging to have to tell 2 young daughters that their mother's passed away. But yeah, no, it can be really challenging. But your colleagues are hugely supportive. Like, I love everyone I work with. I've got nothing bad to say about anyone I've worked with. And when people hear about big jobs you've been on, even if they haven't been on them with you, they'll always say, are you okay? How are you doing? If you ever need to chat, I'm here. If you want to go get coffee outside of work, I'm always free. I've got loads of people who are, if I feel like I want to have a chat, as well as my partner, my mum. My mum's a mental health nurse, so she's got that part down. But yeah, no, and I think it's just having that good support network is hugely important, because it can really impact your mental health. Because sometimes it can really affect you, like your sleep, and it just leads to whole sorts of stuff. But it's just talk to people is the main thing. Don't bottle it up. And just talk about it. Yeah, no, it's a heavy one. That
heavy.
Very heavy.
Wow. So what advice would you give to somebody that wanted to become a paramedic?
I'll say go for it. I think it's the best job in the world. It's the only job where you get to legally break the speed limits.
You're like, running red lights. Yeah.
Like, you get to meet such cool people. Like, you work with or like patients. You get to help out. It's hugely satisfying.
Yeah.
And not just when you go to, I know, cardiac arrest and you manage to get them back. I think I get lots of satisfaction from social care and urgent care jobs, because you'll have this elderly couple who've been struggling for like a couple of years, and you're like, look, I'm just going to make a referral for you. We need to get some help in. You walk away and you're just like, I'm so satisfied by that, because they're now going to get some help and some support. Yeah, I think it's just, don't rush it.
Okay.
I mean, when I started, I wanted to know everything. I wanted to be really good, but you've got to understand no one knows everything. And you will never know everything, because if you do, you'd just be like a doctor. What I did, and a lot of my friends did early on in university, you'd always beat yourself up because you'd do a scenario and you wouldn't, be able to figure out what was going on. You won't do certain things right. Real, like, picnicky bits. And just don't beat yourself up. The job is hugely based off experience. And sometimes you don't get that experience or exposure to be able to make you that good. You just got to wait. You've got to let time take its course, and you gather that experience. Like I said, with delivering bad news, you don't do it very often. But once you've done it a couple of times, you then become more comfortable. It's a hugely uncomfortable situation, but you find comfort in discomfort. But yeah, I think just don't rush it. The basics are so important. It all comes together. It really does. And I think having a good support network is hugely important, because this job can affect you so much. It's not the big jobs which can get you sometimes. It's lots of little jobs which accumulate. So it's just so important to have that support network with your friends, your colleagues, your family. Like, I've been very lucky. My mum has always come back and talked about like patients she's had. So we talk about that sort of stuff around the dinner table, like blood, guts and gore, that sort of stuff. But I remember when I first met my partner's parents, and I was just talking about like an RTC I've went to, and my partner kicked me under the table being like, we're not accustomed to this.
we don't
do
want
this. But I've gradually trained them over time. And now my partner's mum just absolutely loves you. But like, what have you been to? What have you done recently? Like, any births or anything like that? And I'd be like, I've got all the goss for you. But yeah, I think it's just, not rushing it, enjoying your time. If you go to uni is such a incredible experience, because you grow so much as a person. You start to find your sense of self, and I know it sounds really corny, like you find yourself at uni. Like that, and like in the job you grow so much. Like, there's people who I know, like, I mean, I'm 23. There's people who are 20 who are so mature, because the job just matures you so much. So you go to so much, and it makes you think, I'm so thankful for what I've got, and for the position I'm in, and what opportunities I've had to get here. So you meet people from all walks of life.
Amazing. Well, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been amazing.
No, that's absolutely fine. I'm sorry I've brought tears.
No, you're fine. I'm just super emotional. It's fine. Thank you so much.
No, it's fine. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.